In 1985, a young Chinese factory manager stood in a warehouse surrounded by 76 refrigerators. Each one cost 1,760 yuan more than 2 years' salary for his workers. The factory was already drowning in debt and couldn't even afford to pay its 600 employees. These refrigerators represented a fortune the company desperately needed, but there was a problem. They were all defective. Most managers would have sold them anyway, maybe at a discount, maybe to rural areas where quality standards were lower. Maybe they'd fix the worst ones and hope customers wouldn't notice the rest. That's what Chinese manufacturers did in the 1980s. That's how you survived. Zhang Ruimin did something different, something that seemed completely insane. He lined up all 76 refrigerators on the factory floor. Then he handed sledgehammers to his workers, the same people who had built these units with their own hands, and gave them an order that would echo through the next 4 decades of business history: destroy them. What happened next didn't just save one failing factory. It rewrote the rules of management itself. If this story already has you intrigued, do me a favor, hit that like button. The Sleeping Economist is all about uncovering the business revolutions that changed our world while most people weren't paying attention. And this one? This one's extraordinary. Chapter 1. The Factory Nobody Wanted, December 1984. Qingdao, China. A coastal city known for Qingdao beer and not much else in the business world. The Qingdao Refrigerator Factory was dying. Not slowly, rapidly. The municipal government had already cycled through multiple managers. Nobody could fix it. The company owed 1.4 million yuan, a staggering sum, in 1980s China. Production was a joke. Maybe 80 refrigerators per month, most of them defective. Workers showed up when they felt like it. Theft was rampant. The building leaked. Equipment broke down constantly. The 600 employees hadn't been paid in months. Some were stealing copper wire from the factory to sell on the black market just to feed their families. There was no cafeteria, no heat in winter, holes in the roof. Workers wrapped themselves in blankets while assembling refrigerators. The factory's technology consisted of outdated German designs from the 1960s that they barely understood. This was the job the Qingdao city government offered to Zhang Ruimin, a 35-year-old manager who'd shown promise at a household appliance company. Most people told him to refuse. Taking this position meant inheriting an impossible situation. If the factory collapsed, and everyone expected it would destroy his career. Zhang accepted anyway. His first day, he found workers gambling in the warehouse. The bathroom was so filthy that employees relieved themselves in the corners of the production floor. There were no quality standards whatsoever. Refrigerators left the factory with compressors that didn't work, doors that didn't seal, thermostats that failed within weeks. Returns were constant. Reputation was non-existent. But Zhang saw something others missed. China was changing. The economic reforms of Deng Xiaoping were opening the country. For the first time in generations, ordinary Chinese families could aspire to own modern appliances. The market was about to explode if someone could deliver quality products. In 1984, a refrigerator wasn't just a purchase in China. It was one of the 4 big items that defined middle-class status, along with a bicycle, a watch, and a sewing machine. Families saved for years to buy one. When they finally made that purchase, they expected it to last decades. Zhang understood something profound. In a market flooded with mediocre products, quality wasn't just a competitive advantage. It was revolutionary. So he started with basics. He instituted strict work hours. He created hygiene standards. He personally cleaned bathrooms to show nothing was beneath anyone. He stopped theft by implementing inventory controls. He fired the worst offenders and promoted the most dedicated workers. Within months, production began improving. Reliability increased. Returns decreased. The factory wasn't thriving, but it was functioning. Then, In 1985, something happened that would crystallize Zhang's philosophy and create one of the most famous moments in Chinese business history. A customer wrote a complaint letter. Chapter 2. The letter that changed everything. The letter arrived on Zhang's desk on an ordinary morning. A customer had purchased a Qingdao refrigerator and discovered it was defective. The compressor made strange noises. The seal leaked. After traveling all the way back to the factory, no small journey in 1980s China, the customer wanted answers. Zhang didn't dismiss it. He didn't offer a replacement and move on. Instead, he did something that shocked his management team. He decided to personally inspect their entire inventory. He called down his quality control team and headed to the warehouse. What they found was devastating. Out of just over 400 refrigerators in inventory, 76 had significant defects. Some had cosmetic damage dents, scratches, improper paint application. Others had functional problems, faulty compressors, poor seals, thermostats that wouldn't regulate temperature correctly. By the standards of Chinese manufacturing in 1985, this wasn't unusual. The defect rate was actually typical for the industry. Everyone knew that some percentage of appliances would have problems. Customers expected it. Sellers priced it in. Manufacturers accepted it as the cost of doing business. Zhang's managers immediately started suggesting solutions. "We can sell these to rural areas at a discount," one said. "Farmers won't complain as much about cosmetic issues." Another suggested, "Let's just replace the worst components and sell them as refurbished units." A third proposed, "We'll offer an extended warranty on these units to cover potential failures." All perfectly reasonable suggestions. All standard practice for the time. All solutions that would protect the company's desperately needed cash flow. Zhang said no to all of them. He was thinking about something bigger than 76 refrigerators. He was thinking about what kind of company Haier would become, because yes, he'd already renamed the factory Haier after partnering with the German company Liebherr to license their technology. The name sounded both Chinese and international. It represented his ambitions. Those 76 defective refrigerators represented a choice. Would Haier be like every other Chinese manufacturer, accepting mediocrity as inevitable? Or would it become something different, a company where quality was non-negotiable? Zhang made his decision. He would destroy the refrigerators. His management team thought he'd lost his mind. Each unit cost 1,760 yuan to produce. The average worker earned maybe 800 yuan per year. These refrigerators represented more than 133,000 yuan in potential revenue, enough to pay dozens of workers for months. The factory was already bankrupt. They couldn't afford to destroy assets. "If we sell defective products," Zhang replied, "we're not making money. We're destroying our future." He ordered all 76 refrigerators moved to the factory floor. Then he did something even more shocking. He handed hammers to the workers who had built these units and told them to destroy their own work. Chapter 3. Sledgehammers and Tears. Picture the scene. A freezing factory floor in Qingdao, winter 1985. 76 refrigerators lined up in rows. Hundreds of workers gathered, confused and anxious. Management standing to the side, uncertain where this was going. Zhang Ruimin stood in front of everyone, holding a sledgehammer. He explained his reasoning. "These refrigerators have defects. If we sell them, we tell customers that Haier accepts mediocrity. We tell them their money doesn't deserve our respect. We tell them quality doesn't matter. I refuse to build that company." Then he handed out sledgehammers to the workers, specifically to those who had built the defective units. Some workers began crying. Remember, each refrigerator cost more than 2 years of their salary. They were being asked to destroy what represented incredible wealth to them. In an economy where scarcity defined daily life, this seemed like madness. Some refused at first. The emotional weight was too heavy. They'd never seen anyone destroy perfectly sellable goods. It violated every instinct developed in an economy of shortages. Zhang insisted. This wasn't punishment, he explained. This was education. If they could feel the pain of destroying defective work now, they'd never create defective work again. A first hammer fell, metal crunched, compressor coils bent, glass shattered. Workers winced. Then the second blow, and the third. And soon the warehouse filled with the sound of systematic destruction. 76 refrigerators, representing over 133,000 yuan in potential revenue, reduced to scrap metal and broken components. Workers wept as they swung. Some hit harder as anger replaced sadness, anger at themselves for accepting poor standards. Managers watched in stunned silence. Nobody in China had ever seen anything like this. The destruction took hours. By the end, the factory floor was covered in debris. Refrigerator carcasses lay twisted and broken. The air smelled of refrigerant and crushed dreams. Zhang kept one sledgehammer. He placed it in a display case in the factory entrance. Under it, he put a sign. Quality is the dignity of an enterprise. The cost was enormous. The company couldn't afford what they'd just done. But Zhang understood something profound. Sometimes you teach a lesson not through words, but through unforgettable action. Everyone in that factory would remember this day. Everyone would understand what quality meant to the new hire. News of the incident spread through Qingdao, then throughout Chinese manufacturing circles. Most people thought Zhang was crazy. Some thought he was brilliant. Everyone was talking about it. That sledgehammer never moved from its display case. Workers walked past it every single day. It became their constant reminder. Quality is non-negotiable. Decades later, that sledgehammer would be removed from the hire factory and placed in China's National Museum in Beijing, a symbol of the transformation of Chinese business. But in 1985, the real test was just beginning. Chapter 4. Building a Quality Culture. The immediate aftermath was brutal. Hire had just destroyed 133,000 yuan worth of inventory while drowning in 1.4 million yuan of debt. The math didn't work. The balance sheet looked worse than ever. But something unexpected happened among the workers. They stopped accepting defects. Not because Zhang ordered it, though he did institute strict quality controls, but because they'd felt the emotional impact of destroying their own work. That experience created a visceral understanding that quality meant something real. Zhang implemented rigorous new standards. Every refrigerator underwent multiple inspections. Workers were held personally accountable for their units. If a defect was found, the entire team responsible would review what went wrong. No blame games, just systematic problem solving. He created a culture of zero distance to the customer. Workers weren't building refrigerators for inventory. They were building refrigerators for specific families who'd saved for years to afford one. That psychological shift changed everything. The company adopted what Zhang called 3 no's. No accepting defects, no creating defects, no passing along defects. Each worker became responsible not just for their own work, but for catching problems before they moved downstream. Revenue remained terrible for a while. Quality improvements didn't immediately translate to sales. The company still struggled with cash flow. Zhang sometimes couldn't make payroll. Creditors circled. The municipal government questioned whether they'd made a mistake keeping the factory open. But slowly, something began shifting in the market. Customers who bought higher refrigerators noticed the difference. They worked, they lasted, they didn't leak. Doors sealed properly, compressors ran quietly. Temperature control actually worked. In a market flooded with unreliable products, higher appliances stood out. Word of mouth spread. If you buy higher, you won't have problems. In China's emerging consumer economy, where trust was scarce and returns were difficult, that reputation became priceless. By 1988, Haier was winning quality awards. The brand became synonymous with reliability. Sales began accelerating. The factory that couldn't pay 600 workers in 1984 was hiring hundreds more by the late 1980s. Zhang used quality as the foundation for expansion. Between 1988 and 1991, the Qingdao government asked Haier to take over 18 other failing factories. Zhang agreed, but only if he could implement his quality standards. Each acquisition followed the same pattern: install strict controls, eliminate defects, build reputation, grow sales. The sledgehammer became legendary within Haier. No employees heard the story during orientation. The message was clear: this company doesn't compromise on quality, ever. But Zhang wasn't satisfied with just being China's best refrigerator manufacturer. He saw the global market opening. He saw opportunities beyond appliances. He began asking dangerous questions. What if quality wasn't enough? What if the entire structure of the company needed reinvention? Those questions would lead to something even more radical than smashing refrigerators. Chapter 5: The Management Revolution. Fast forward to 2013. Haier had become a global giant. Revenue exceeded $29 billion. They operated in over 100 countries. By market share, they were challenging for the title of world's largest appliance manufacturer. Any reasonable CEO would have been satisfied. Any conventional thinker would have maintained the hierarchy that got them there. After all, it was working. Zhang Ruimin did the opposite. He looked at his own organizational structure and saw the same kind of mediocrity he'd seen in those defective refrigerators back in 1985. Haier had become bureaucratic. Middle managers protected their territory. Innovation slowed. Decision-making took weeks. The company was structured like a pyramid: executives at the top, workers at the bottom, layers of managers in between, insulating leadership from reality and workers from accountability. So Zhang destroyed that too. Not with sledgehammers this time, but with something equally shocking. He eliminated 12,000 middle management positions. Let me repeat that. 12,000 managers. In one restructuring, he gave them a choice: become entrepreneurs or leave. No more guaranteed salaries. No more middle management titles. No more protective bureaucracy. Instead, Haier would become a platform of micro-enterprises. The company was reorganized into roughly 4,000 small teams, typically 10 to 15 people, each called micro-enterprises. Each team operated as an independent business unit, directly accountable to customers, responsible for their own profits and losses. No bosses above them dictating strategy. No safety nets below them cushioning failure. Zhang called this model Rendanheyi, which roughly translates to integration of people and value. The idea: connect employees directly to the value they create for customers, eliminating the bureaucratic insulation that destroyed accountability. Corporate headquarters became a platform, providing resources, technology, capital, expertise, but not making operational decisions. Teams could compete for resources, but they had to prove their value. Teams could fail, and members would have to find other teams willing to take them. This was radical beyond comprehension. Most management consultants thought it couldn't work at scale. How do you coordinate 4,000 independent teams? How do you maintain brand consistency? How do you prevent chaos? But Zhang understood something profound. Bureaucracy is a defect just like a broken refrigerator. It looks functional. It seems necessary. But it destroys value and trust, just in slower, harder-to-see ways. The Rendanheyi transformation took years and caused massive disruption. Some leaders left, some teams failed. The model required completely rethinking compensation, decision rights, resource allocation, and performance measurement. But the results were extraordinary. Innovation accelerated. New products reached market faster. Employee engagement increased. Teams close to customers could respond immediately to needs without waiting for approval from distant executives. In 2016, Haier acquired GE Appliances for $5.6 billion, one of the largest. Chinese acquisitions of an American company ever. They applied Rendanheyi principles to GE's Louisville operations, and performance improved dramatically. Chapter 6. Why this matters to you. So what does a story about sledgehammers in 1980s China and eliminating 12,000 managers mean for you? Why does the sleeping economist think you should care about Zhang Ruimin? Because this story contains 3 profound lessons that apply whether you're running a Fortune 500 company or managing your personal career. First, quality compounds, but so does mediocrity. Every time you accept good enough, you're not just making one isolated decision. You're teaching yourself and everyone around you what standards mean. Zhang understood the 76 refrigerators weren't really about the money. They were about what kind of company Haier would become. Every defect you accept becomes the new baseline. Every shortcut you take makes the next shortcut easier to justify. Quality isn't expensive. Mediocrity is. It just bills you later. Second, culture is built through unforgettable moments, not through policy documents. Zhang could have written a quality manual. He could have posted mission statements. He could have sent memos. None of it would have mattered. But when workers physically destroyed their own defective work feeling, the weight of the hammers, hearing the crash of breaking metal, seeing the waste of poor standards, that lesson became permanent. What unforgettable moments have you created that define your standards? What stories do people tell about what you won't compromise on? Third, the systems that brought you success will eventually become the obstacles preventing your next level of growth. This is the hardest lesson. Zhang's quality focus built Haier into a global giant. But by 2013, that same organizational structure, all those managers, all that hierarchy had become the defect. The courage to destroy what you built is rarer than the courage to build it in the first place. What in your life worked 5 years ago, but is now holding you back? What structures are you protecting simply because they're familiar? In 2024, Haier reported global revenue of $55.9 billion, an 8% increase from the previous year. They've been ranked the world's #1 major appliance brand by Euromonitor International for 16 consecutive years. They operate over 4,000 micro-enterprises. They've acquired iconic brands like GE Appliances, Fisher and Paykel, and Candy. They employ over 80,000 people globally. And it all traces back to one moment in 1985 when a young manager refused to accept that mediocrity was inevitable. Zhang Ruimin is now retired from daily operations, though he remains chairman emeritus. But his sledgehammer sits in China's National Museum. His Rendanheyi model is studied at business schools worldwide. If stories like this, where we uncover the economic events that shaped our world while most people weren't paying attention, fascinate you, please like this video and subscribe to the channel, because we're just getting started with these financial, educational mysteries.